Hello, everyone. Welcome to the new episode of Professionals Unplugged. I am your host, Utkarsh Shukla, and today we have Braeden with us. Braeden, thank you so much for joining in.
Happy to be here. Thanks for the invite.
So, let's start with our very basic question. Can you please introduce yourself to our audience, like who you are, what work you do?
For sure. Yeah. So my name is Braden Matson. I'm in Vancouver, Canada, born and raised. I'm the co-founder of a small consultancy called Growth Quotient, which is essentially a consultancy agency hybrid. So I spent about a decade in marketing, and I've seen a lot on the agency side. So that kind of led me to start my own venture to try and solve a lot of the agency problems that I've seen. I'm also a natural bodybuilder, or I guess I like to use that title, and a musician as well. So I've got my hands full, but it's all good.
That's really great, and it seems like you have a multiple feathers on your head, right? So, first question is how you try to prioritize your work. Like sometimes it must be one job asking more time, and sometimes other, right? So, how do you try to fix it?
The honest answer is I think it's an ongoing process of learning. So I do find that time blocking has been a really big one for me, and then making sure though that you actually have the discipline and follow through for it, because it's only one thing if you have your calendar blocked off, but if you don't adhere to it, you've wasted the time. So I do find time blocking is impactful for me, setting like main priorities for the week and then actually having the discipline to stick to it. There's another framework. I think it's called the Eisenhower Matrix. Most people have probably heard of it, but it's like a quadrant where you have urgent and important. And essentially, it's the things that are urgent and important you do first. And then there's other boxes for whether you delegate things or leave it. So you can look that up. That's also been helpful, like as a mental reframe. And then there's tools like I'm a big fan of Motion. I don't have a referral link. I'm not selling it. I find Motion is a good tool as well. So that's probably that's those are the main ones. But again, you got to put stuff. If something's in your calendar, you got to treat it like an appointment. Otherwise, sometimes if I don't have the discipline, I'll just keep working instead of going to the gym, and then I feel bad about myself.
Correct. And now coming to the part of being an entrepreneur, right? As you mentioned, you're a co-founder. So how you started this journey and what were the initial steps? Because the starting or sometimes the inception is the main key, like how you start a particular thing, right? So what was your journey like?
Yeah, so I can kind of go back a little ways because I think it's relevant, but I kind of started in marketing around 2016 or so, and kind of I didn't know digital marketing was a thing. I just kind of fell into it by doing this program in Vancouver here. It was a 3 month program, and I got a job right away, and I experienced with a lot of imposter syndrome that I'm sure we'll cover later on. But essentially, I've been in multiple agencies for that time, so and some others as well, and so. I saw the same things happening in agencies over and over, which we don't have to belabor this point too much, but essentially that agencies, and I tend to be a little hard on agencies. It's not because I don't, love my agency brethren. It's just because I've seen the business model fail clients over and over, which tends to incentivize tasks, project management, and making dashboards look good, whether or not the business is actually working properly. And at the end of the year, did the business achieve financial gains? Most agencies are basically built on just doing behaviors to make dashboards look good so that they retain clients. That's the honest truth. And so, after kind of seeing the same thing over and over, and basically every agency, no matter the size, no matter the case studies, I noticed that there's a big need where most clients, huge enterprise companies tend to outsource like to huge consultancies and then big agencies, but there's a band in the SMB space where clients really they want strategy and they want nimble execution. So they want a better understanding of or better grounding in the agency for the client's business and overall strategy, but then they also want nimble execution that doesn't take, a week or 2 weeks to get things done. And so that was really the impetus for me, was just noticing the problem and noticing the market need, and then kind of putting off starting Growth Quotient for a very long time. And I think there's kind of two paths that you can take. One is where you build the thing on the side until it's essentially at the level of your day job, and then you leave your day job. That's like the safe way to do it. The other way to do it is what I did, which is just to say F it and you just go quit and go all in. And that's far scarier because you need a bit of runway. And I don't have a family yet, so it's a luxury to be able to do that. But that is essentially the approach I've taken is just I've spent a lot of time not believing that I can do it and life is short, so I might as well just try and do this now or I'm gonna live with a lot of regret, basically.
That's really great. And now talking about taking the risk. So what were the biggest challenges that you think you have found you have faced while this entire journey?
The biggest one, honestly, is being objective. So I find, and I've talked to some other founders who are this way as well, but it seems to be it's not universal. Like I think it's an individual problem, but I find that I can be if I'm evaluating another company, another business, I can be very objective, right? Because it's not my brand, it's not my money. But when it is my own thing, like all of my ability to be objective and to be a consultant kind of disappears a little bit. And I have a really hard time keeping that frame of objectivity. And so that's honestly been the biggest thing for me is like I need myself. Like the services that I offer, like I need for myself, but I have a hard time doing them. And so I recently just spent a few months actually just totally stepping away from the business, working another job and just kind of like working a 9 to 5 and just letting my brain sit on it. And now I've come back to it and I feel a little bit more clarity. But it's honestly that, like I said, it's that sense that I'm being objective that is the hardest thing, but there's also like listening to your intuition and I feel the need to pivot all the time, and that's another one too. So I think most of my problems have been self-created. I think that's a pretty common thing with founders.
Right. And talking about onboarding new clients with you, right? So how do you try to build the trust with the clients, and what is the main thing that you think is setting your company apart from the others?
Yeah, I mean, I think in all of the years I've spent in agencies, I think really there's three main things that I've seen just consistently over and over that clients actually want. One is of course the results, right? Whatever that is. If you're an SEO agency, they're looking for SEO results, right? Rankings, et cetera, traffic, conversions. If you're a lead gen agency, they want leads, right? Like however they're measuring you, they want that thing. But then they also want an actual relationship with someone that they feel they can trust. And specifically, trust means that you tell the truth and then you do what you say you're going to do. If you do those things, you will get trust, right? So if you say what you believe is true and you also say what you're going to do and then you follow through and you do those things, that is what creates trust, even when you make mistakes or things don't go well. Because if you tell a client, like, we're going to do this test, it might not perform well, and here's why. Here's what we'll learn if we don't do it, or if we do it and it doesn't work, etc. And then you follow through with it, and then you're able to communicate even if it doesn't work. That still builds trust because you told the truth the whole time and you did what you said that you were going to do. I think that's where the core position of Growth Quotient is that it's the hybrid between consultancy and agency, which means that I'm not interested in selling services if I don't think that those services are going to work for the bottom line of the business. And I would rather be small and struggle here and there a little bit to grow, but work with clients who are bought in on that instead of just selling any client with a pulse. Right. So that's a big part of it. But then again, in terms of building trust, it's telling the truth and doing what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
And then in terms of how we're different, again, I would just say it's that combination of like the consultant aspect and the strategy comes first, the tactics come second. I'm not interested in selling services. We're interested in selling an outcome, but we need to have input over the whole system and the overall strategy and not just be, you know, executors of something like paid media because oftentimes again that's bound to fail.
Right. And any stories that you like to share with us from your journey?
Yeah, there's probably a couple here. I think one that comes to mind is thinking about imposter syndrome and kind of it's very common, so I think it's probably or hopefully relevant for people listening and watching. But I can essentially remember the moment that I first realized that I didn't know anything, and I think it was October of 2017 because I just started this like first job out of school, basically. It's making like 30K Canadian a year, by the way. So for US listeners, that's like 20 something. Um, and just making it work and kind of responsible for all the digital stuff. And I think it was our Halloween party, and I lived a little bit farther away, so I like stayed at the office instead of going home first. And it was just me in the office, and I'd been reading some stuff about SEO because I was responsible for SEO as well as like paid media and other stuff. And I just remember this actual moment where it just kind of it wasn't a panic attack or anything. It was just like this sudden pit in my stomach where I realized that what I had learned in school was like 5% of this iceberg. And I felt super like incompetent and incapable. And I think that's something that a lot of people resonate with because it doesn't, there's good news and bad news, right? The bad news is that never goes away. But the good news is everyone has that to some extent. And there's kind of this curve where earlier on when you're learning something, you can feel really overconfident. And then as you learn more, it actually levels off at a certain point where you're able to just kind of settle into like, I'm confident in what I know, but I'm not a genius. I'm always going to keep learning. And so I think getting through that requires literally just continuing to move through it. You can either leave a field or a discipline because you're too uncomfortable, or you can keep going and keep learning and just accept that that feeling is always going to be there. And then finally, too, remembering that like even really, really knowledgeable people who look like they have it all together, we're all really just trying to figure this out. I mean, NASA rockets have exploded, right? The smartest people on this planet have made terrible mistakes. Always remember that, is what I would say.
Yeah, but I think that's these are very good point that you mentioned. Everyone somehow like consciously or subconsciously have this thing like where we think we know everything, but when we come to the ground reality, it's completely different, right? So
Exactly.
how do you manage to, like you said, like when you were alone in the office, you found out like this was happening to you, right? So how do you figure it out? Like this is imposter syndrome. Like, did you consult someone or how was it?
I think like in the actual moment of the experience, I didn't label it. It was just like this feeling in my head of like you don't know anything, you shouldn't be here, you shouldn't have this job and you're a fraud. Like that's just kind of the feeling. And then later on, within a few days or weeks or whatever, it's been a concept that people have been talking about for quite some time, so I kind of just clued in that that's what it was. But I don't think I labeled it imposter syndrome for a couple years, to be honest with you, because it was kind of just how I felt day to day. So I think if you are experiencing that, labeling it early might be helpful so that you can actually point to it to be able to like diagnose the issue. Whereas for me, I just kind of sat in that discomfort for a very long time, I think.
Yeah, but I think it's totally relatable. I am now also able to recall that story in my mind where I felt the same, right? I think the point you mentioned, like everyone among us is have faced that issue sometimes in our life as well, right? So it's very
Yeah,
important to know like no one is perfect here and we all need to grow at some point of the time.
exactly. Yeah.
So at this point of life, like Braden, what's your dream right now?
It's a fun question because so I'm 30. I have no issue sharing that. 30-year-old dude. And 10 years ago, the answer to this probably would have been like Um, a lot of money and a nice house and like attractive wife and all those things. And like I think at this point though, like the honest answer now that I mean, I think 30 is like the new 40 or whatever. Maybe that's a cringy phrase, I don't know. But at this point, honestly, like it might sound like fake or cheesy or something, but genuinely it's like when I'm I don't know, 70 or 80 something, the dream is that I still have my health, but that I have like children and grandkids and a family who love each other and who love me. Like and we can talk a lot about legacy, but I don't know, maybe it's just like a getting older thing. It's really easy to make work your identity and be obsessed about what you're building, coming from a place of like pride and proving it to yourself. But honestly, like I think winning in life is people who will remember you and who love you, honestly. So like take that for what it is. Some people might not believe that that's true, but that is the dream, honestly.
That's
Like
really,
the business is just a way to get there, honestly. It's a means to an end, to be frank.
I think that's really important thing to prioritize your life and family above the business. And like business is something that can get you there, but business should not be the first priority, right? I think that's what you
100%.
mean to say, right?
That'll ruin your life, honestly. I think like money is a means to an end. We all like money. Let's just be honest about it. Money's great. I want more money. We all do. But when you make money an idol, when you worship money, and when you make that the goal, like, I mean, there's so many miserable, really wealthy people, right? It's not the number one thing.
Correct. Is there any advice that you follow in your life and any one advice that you like to share? Although you have already shared a couple of them, but is there any specific ones?
I think the first one I'm always trying to remind myself of this is that almost everything you want is on the other side of some level of discomfort or fear. Like there's nothing wrong with having fun or pleasure once in a while, but if you over index on that, especially in today's world, I've struggled a lot with like cheap dopamine because it's everywhere. Everything is a slot machine now, right? Like my grandpa grew up on a farm in Eastern Canada in like 1930s, right? 20th century. There was no like cheap, there was no scrolling social media. Everything was hard. And those people grew up strong and healthy and they had mental resilience because life forced it on them. But now you actually have to go and manually choose those difficult things. Like if you are just living your life without an awareness to it, like you won't be a strong person. And I'm not claiming to be. I'm just saying like you have to actually try and seek out discomfort, whether that is exercise that makes you feel uncomfortable, like cold showers, difficult conversations, reading when instead of watching Netflix, like you actually have to choose those things. That's absolutely massive. Dopamine management is a really, really big part of this. I'm not a neuroscientist, but everyone should go and listen to Anna Lemke. She wrote a book called Dopamine Nation. Her podcast on Huberman Lab is really good because it's all about dopamine regulation. And I mean, I just can't overemphasize that enough. Like, if you can spend 30 minutes a day sitting by yourself or walking with absolutely no distractions, no phone, no food or sugary drinks, nothing, just you and your mind, like that will have a significant impact. And then finally, I think I would say always remember that you are not the voice in your head. That can be a big one. We have a tendency to identify with our thoughts and think that we are the one who's talking, but we're not, right? Like if you wrote out the stuff that you thought in your head moment to moment, people would think you were totally insane, but we all do it. So that's important as well.
Right. I think I totally agree with you on this point. It's pretty important for us to take some time off without any social media and without any sugars, especially, and
Yeah.
to be prepare ourselves. And the challenges part is also pretty much good. I think these are pretty good advice that to share. So that's the best part, I think, to end this podcast. So thank you so much, Braden, for coming in and sharing your insights. I think time just flew away. It's more than 20 minutes.
Time
So,
flies.
guy, thanks so much, Braden. Thank you.
Thank you.